So question 4 of line spectra worksheet. I've been asked to go over this question, and many of you might have the same question. You've got a hot object at around about 5,000 Kelvin. Consider that is like the center of the sun, and it's giving off a very high amount of radiation in all parts of the electromagnetic spectrum. So what we are expecting is especially in the light section of the electromagnetic spectrum, that all the colors from the visible spectrum are emitted. So if you have person X, you're expecting all the colors across the visible spectrum to be observed, and that is called a continuous spectrum. Okay, now that light is emitted as a continuous spectrum in all directions. So this way, this way, this way, this way, in all directions. Now, some of that light is making its way to a cooler object. In your question, it says 2000 Kelvin. Now, with respect to the 5000 Kelvin, it's a cooler object. So when you have a cooler object, the electrons within the elements are in the lower states, so they're closer to the ground state. So those electrons are much lower in terms of where they are in the energy levels. So when this light passes through this material, this cooler material, certain wavelengths, certain photons are absorbed by the electrons that are in the lower energy levels, because electrons occupy lower energy levels at cooler temperatures. So certain wavelengths will be absorbed for those electrons to excite upwards an energy level. So when that light continues to pass in the direction in which it came from, it is no longer going to be a continuous spectrum, but what you're going to have is the colors of a rainbow, but certain lines missing, certain colors missing, okay, certain wavelengths missing, and those wavelengths are missing because they have been absorbed by electrons to move up an energy level. So that an absorption spectra is observed by person at Z. Now, this light that is coming in, this continuous spectra that of wavelengths that is coming towards the cooler object, doesn't change direction. It continues on in the same direction. Now, those electrons that had moved up when this continuous spectra passed through and those photons were absorbed are eventually going to make their way back down and give off photons. Now, those photons are given off in all directions, not the direction of the photons that were incoming. So when the electrons de-excite back to their levels, those photons are not going to go off only in the direction that the original photon came in at. They actually move off in all directions, which is why person in position Y is going to observe the emission spectra.